Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and today is another edition of Warhammer the Golden Age. This is battle report number 25. This is a 2,000 point battle that is fought between myself with my House Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros, which is my 2,000 point Dark Elves army, versus my buddy Smells Like Febreze of the Wyld Hunt with his 2,000 point Wood Elves army. So this battle report could be kind of a little interesting. The reason why is because we're going with a Forest Spirit build for my opponent's army on this one. Smells Like Febreze decided to use my Age of Sigmar army and try to use it for Warhammer the Golden Age and try to make 2,000 point list out of that. So you get to see exactly what happens in 2,000 points of Dark Elf Reavers go up against 2,000 points of Wood Elf's Forest Spirits in the 8th edition of Warhammer. With that being done, let's go and talk about the different army lists for this one. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about my army. House Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros. It is a 2,000 point Dark Elves army. This is my Monster Mash list. If you've been watching the last few episodes of Warhammer the Golden Age, you know exactly what this list is made up of. Let's start off with my Lords and Heroes. First of all, for my General, we have Beast Lord Midas Daechir, the Golden Lord of Skyros. He's my High Beast Master, who's also my General. He is equipped with the Chill Blade and Armor of Destiny. He rides on Kalibos, which is Manticore, who's equipped with Blind Rage, as well as Iron Hard skin upgrades. My next Lord choice is Sister Sinner. She is the Oracle of Kos. She is a Supreme Sorceress with a level 4 upgrade. She's toting the Sacrificial Dagger as well as a Talisman of Endurance and using the Lore of Dark Magic for this one. And the spells that she rolled are Power of Darkness, Word of Pain, Shroud of Despair, and Arinzapal's Black Horror. Next comes from my heroes, we have Captain Lodi Daechir, the Golden Sun. He is a Master with a Battle Center Bearer upgrade. He's equipped with Heavy Armor, Shield, Sea Dragon, Cloak, and Halberd, and he's also packing the Crown of Command. For my core choices, we have the Sea Stone Sorrows, which are 38 Dread Spears at full command of the Standard Discipline, and the Morning Dawn, which are 10 Dark Shards of Standard Bearer and Banner of Eternal Flame. For my special choices, we have the Storms of Kos, which are 2 Reaper Bolt Throwers, as well as Virzil the Broken, who's a War Hydra with a Fire Breath upgrade. And then for my rare choices, we have the Shacklemore Seers, which are 5 Doomfire Warlocks, the spells of the Cursed Coven. They're using both Doombolt as well as Soulblight for this battle report. And the very cornerstone of my army, the baddest of the bad, the Monster Slayer himself, Rathrek the Maw, who is my Charybdis. And that's going to make up 2,000 points for this battle report. Alright, next comes Smells Like Febreze's army, the Wyld Hunt, which is a 2,000 point Wood Elves army. For his Lord and hero choices, he has Durthu, the Eldest of Ancients. He's his general with the Lore of Beasts, and this time he rolled the Savage Beast of Horus spell. And his other Lord choice is Coadil the Willow Lord, who is a Tree Man Ancient with level 4 upgrade. He's using the Lore of Life. His spells that he rolled for this one are Flesh to Stone, Throne of Vines, Regrowth, as well as the Dwellers Below. For his core choices, he has 4 units of Dryads. The Court of Summers, which are 20 Dryads, the Branch Nymph. The Court of Winters, which is 20 Dryads and a Branch Nymph. The Court of Springs, which are 10 Dryads with a Branch Nymph. And the Court of Autumns, which are 10 Dryads with a Branch Nymph. And then finally, for his army, he's got 2 special choices. He has the Troop of Dawn, which are 6 Treekin with a Treekin Elder. And the Troop of Dusk, which are another unit of 6 Treekin with a Treekin Elder equipped for that one. And that'll make up his 2,000 point army for this one. Alright, here is deployment. We're fighting on our 4x6 table. As you can see on this battle report, my buddy Smells Like Febreze won the initiative to see deployed first. He decided to take the near side of the board. Right behind his army, he's got his 2 Wildwoods were located there that he gets at the beginning of each of his battles because he's got the Realm Roots special rule, I believe is what it's called, and that's where you get to put a force anywhere you want on your side of the deployment area on the opening course of the battle. As you can see, we have several forests scattered throughout the entire board. We also have some ruins, we also have some hills, as well as a river kind of cutting our board into the 2/3, so that's kind of nice as well. And as you can see, Smells Like Febreze also decided to take the near side of the board, while I'm deploying on the far side. So with that being said, let's go talk about pretty much what I'm going through. As you can see in this battle, I'm pretty much going for kind of like a fix as well as flanking maneuver. As you can see, I have my Doomfire Warlocks on the left-hand side and the other side of the river, so that way they can kind of outmaneuver and try to cast Soul Blight off as much as possible, so that way I can shoot them down with some of my Storms of Kos as well as my Morning Dawn. And then of course I have my main fighting line, which is the Sea Stone Sorrows right there, located in the top, in the middle of the hill, and on the right-hand side there I got my Monster Mashes, so that way they can kind of flank in from the right-hand flank as well. So with that being said, let's go and talk about the individual deployment areas for this one. Alright, here's a close to my left-hand flank. As you can see there, I have my Doomfire Warlocks, the Shacklemore Seers. Pretty much my plan with them is to have them try to outflank the enemy by attacking from the left-hand side of the Wood Elves' entire left-hand flank. Have them cast Soul Blight if I can and try to get the Doombolt spell off on Durthu and try to take that guy out as quickly as possible. If I'm not able to get those 2 spells off back-to-back, at least I can try to weaken them down a little bit, trying to get one to their toughness, so that way my crossbowmen as well as my bolt throwers can actually just start shooting up things that are located within the army and try to weaken them as much as possible. So yeah, that pretty much makes up the Dark Elves deployment on the left-hand flank. And deployed in the center portion of the battle lines is where most of my army is located at. As you can see on the top, I got my Storms of Cost for my 2 Reaper bolt throwers. They're located there on the hill, so that they have a good line of fire. On the left-hand side, we have my Morning Dawn, which are my 10 Reaper Dark Shards. Those guys are also equipped with the Flaming Standard, which is really going to help me on this one because those Treemen have the Flammable special rules, so that'll help me get some double damage if I can wound those guys, which would be kind of nice as well. And over there, right here on the right-hand side, you have my huge unit of Spearmen, which is my Sea Stone Sorrows. That's 38 Dread Spears. My Supreme Sorceress, Sister Synergy, is located in the front rank on the left-hand side. Captain House Daechir, the Battle Standard Bearer, is located there on the right-hand side. And of course, the rest are all just Dread Spears. And so that army is just the absolute cornerstone for my army. It's built to last, it's built to fight, it's built to be stubborn and not run away. It's just an all-around perfect hard-hitting unit for suppression, and I love it to pieces. So that makes up the centered plan for my army on this one. And here's the close-up of my deployment on the right-hand flank. As you can see there, I have all 3 of my monsters are located there. Starting from the left, you got Wrathric the Maul, that is my Charybdis. Right behind him, you have Beast Lord Midas Daechir mounted on top of his Manticore Calibos. And on the far right-hand side, you got Virza the Broken, which is my War Hydra. As it's kind of like a nice little flanking unit that I use to attack from the right-hand flank on this one. I get bonuses from the Beast Lord to kind of give him additional attacks I want to, or he could use it for his own Manticore. It's pretty much up to him how he wants to use it. The overall plan is pretty simple. Weaken my opponent's army with Soul Blight from my Doomfire Warlocks and shoot him to pieces with my Repeat Reaper Bolt Throwers as well as Crosswomen. Suppress his main center line with my Dread Spears as well as my Crosswomen, and then flank on the right hand side with my monsters and try to capture him into a full envelopment. So that pretty much makes the plan for this one, as well as the layout for my deployment. Alright, so let's talk about Smells Like for Breeze's flanks. As you can see on the left-hand side, he has 3 units located here. He's got his Troop of Spring, which is the 10-man unit of Dryads right there on the left-hand side, followed by the Court of Summers, which is that huge unit of 20 Dryads there in the center, and then right behind them, kind of helping them out, you have Durthu, which is the Eldest of Ancients, so that's where they're deployed at. And make up the center of his army, he's got his 2 units of Treekin, 6 Treekin apiece with Treekin Elders. That's the Troop of Dawn on the left-hand side, as well as the Troop of Dusk on the right-hand deployment. So that makes up the center deployment for his army. And making up his right-hand flank, starting from the left and working way to the right, we have the Court of Winters, which is a huge unit of 20 Dryads located there with a branched in from the front. On the far right-hand side, we have the Court of Autumns, which are his unit of 10 Dryads with a branched in kind of protecting his right flank. And then right behind both of them, you have Coadil the Will Lord, that's his level 4 Tree Man Ancient, who's also packing the Lore of Life. And that pretty much makes up his right-hand flank on this one. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for this battle report. Alright, we go to directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Dark Elves. We both rolled for initiative on this one, and I got to secure it, so because of that, I'll be going first for each of my turns. This photo has been taken right after the movement phase. As you see in this photo, I pretty much move up my army conservatively. My plan is to try to weaken this army as much as I possibly can before I get in grips with close combat. 4 spirits have a pretty good toughness. Most everybody's base toughness of 4. They also have pretty good strength. Everybody's a toughness of strength of 4 for base for most of his fighting units. So what I have to do is I have to weaken this army down before I engage him in close combat. My plan is to weaken him down both with using magic as well as shooting on this one. So you can see I didn't do very much movement. I just moved up my 2 main infantry units in the center there. I moved up their regular 5 inches to kind of get them in a good situation where basically my opponent will have the bottleneck between both the forest and the left hand side of the board as well as that ruin with those orchards there. So that way he's kind of bottlenecked and has it coming from that direction. On the very far right hand side, as you can see, I also moved up my monsters. I just moved up their basic movement allowance so that way they can start coming in and sweeping in from the right hand side to take out whatever his army has coming towards me. The real movement, however, took place on the left-hand flank. As you can see there, my Doomfire Warlocks marched up as quickly as they possibly could, using the Vanguard special rules and getting them within perfect distance to cast Soul Blight. I basically have options here. I can either cast a regular spell of Soul Blight and give a target Durthu, give him -1 strength and -1 toughness, and make him a little bit weaker to shoot at with my Reaper Bolt Throwers, or I could use the big spell, which is the boosted version, which basically affects every enemy within 24 inches, and that'll probably get his Treekin as well as 2 units of Dryads there in the left-hand flank, which would be kind of nice to target those guys with. So depending on how the magic phase goes, that's pretty much my plan, and that's pretty much my scheme maneuver for this part. Here's a close-up of my Doomfire Warlocks, my Shacklemore Sears getting in position to start running down some Soul Blight as well as Doom Bolts upon my opponent's flanks. And here's a close-up of both my center portion of my army as well as my right-hand flank, moving up them conservatively so that way they can start coming to grips with my enemy and start outmaneuvering as well as ranking and flanking. So that pretty much makes the move for this one. During the magic phase, I use the spell Power of Darkness to give my Dread Spirits +1 strength. I pretty much did so that way I can get some additional power dice. I rolled horribly for the power dice. I think I got like rolled 3 dice on that part, so I decided to get some more power dice by casting that spell. Unfortunately for me, however, my Supreme Sorceress Sister Sinner does take a wound for her troubles because I rolled 3 power dice, and with that shot magic, he gets wounded. I did try to block with the Talisman of Endurance, but I wasn't able to roll high enough to stop that wound from going through, so now my Supreme Sorceress is carrying an additional wound on top of that, so that's pretty rough. However, I do get 3 additional magic dice, so it kind of helps me out later on in the magic phase. And speaking of which, I decided to use all the remaining battle spell dice that I have to kind of cast out the boosted version of Soul Blight. As you can see, there affects all these units of Forest Spirits within 24 inches of my Doomfire Warlocks. It hits the Troop of Dawn, as well as Durthu, the Court of Summers, as well as the Court of Springs, and now all those units have -1 strength as well as -1 toughness, so that part was pretty epic. Unfortunately for me, the only reason why that spell went off is because I got 2 6s, so now I have to roll the miscast table.
Klaatu! Narada!
And it ended up not being so bad at that part. It was basically the small detonation spell that kind of went off to target 3 of my Doomfire Warlocks, but luckily for me though, even though it was a really high strength 10 hit, their 4 of ward save stopped any damage from taking place on that. So that part was pretty epic, and so no damage done for my troops, but a whole lot of hexes put on my opponent, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. So with magic done, we go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, it pretty much was like bluster, because the fact that my Morning Dawn Mood, firing at long range, and also firing their crossbows at multiple shots, I basically had to roll 6s plus a 1 in order to kind of hit anything with that part, so none of my shots really made it, or wounded any of the Dryads, so that part was kind of sad. However, when it came to my Reaper Bolt Throwers, one of my Bolt Thrower shots did make it onto Durthu, however, they only managed to inflict 1 wound, it was all said and done, which is pretty rough on that part as well. So, even though most of my shooting was kind of wasted with this magical opportunity for some serious hexes put on my opponent, I just couldn't exploit it. The dice gods were just not with me on that part. So with shooting out of the way, we go directly to the combat phase, and since nothing is engaged in close combat, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Wood Elves. So this photo is taken after the bottom of turn number 1 for the Wood Elves. This photo is taken after the move phase. As you can see in this photo, pretty much everything that can move up does move up for my buddy Smells Like Febreze. Almost all of his forces in this army are all close combat oriented military forces, so he just moves them up as quickly as possible. As you can see, so on the left hand side, he moves up his spring unit of Court of Springs in order to try to intercept my Doomfire Warlocks. He also moves up Durthu into that force to get him some safety for some long range fire. At the same time, he kind of marches up his unit of the Court of Springs, marches them forward as much as possible, as well as his troops of Dawn and Dusk. He only moves up his Court of Winters a little bit to the on the right hand side, just a little bit, so that way they can start intercepting any monsters that might coming his way and kind of protect his right hand flank. And then he marches his Court of Autumns around the other side of those ruins. We didn't get those guys in the photo, unfortunately, but they're on the other side of the ruins. They're getting ready to intercept whatever might be coming their way as well. And then of course you can see Coedel the Willow right behind that unit of the Court of Winters, kind of lends some magical support. So that pretty much makes it the move for turn number 1 for the Wood Elves. Alright, here's a close-up of the left-hand flank. As you can see there, the Court of Springs moving up to try to intercept my Doomfire Warlocks, and Durthu takes cover there in the forests. Here's a close-up of Smells Like Febreze's main fighting units for the Court of Summer, the Troop of Dawn, as well as the Troop of Dusk, giving them charge distance of my Dark Elves, and I'm going to have to figure out how to deal with those guys here in a little bit. And here's a close-up of his right-hand flank with the Court of Winters, as well as Coedel the Warlord, kind of taking up positions behind those orchards as well as ruins. On the raw right-hand side, you can see his the Court of Autumns kind of gaining position there to intercept my Monster Mash. And so with moving out of the way, we go directly to the magic phase. So in the magic phase, he pretty much gets off 2 spells off. I was managing to spell most of them. However, the 2 spells he did manage to get off was both Throne of Vines, which gives him all those boosted, wonderful magical boosts to his Lore of Life spells, which is kind of rough for me, but that's the way it rolls. And he also cast that spell Flesh to Stone on that unit of Court of Autumns, which is that unit of Dryads on the right hand side. He gave him 3 up toughness on that part as well, so those guys are now toughness 7. So I decided to charge into those guys to try to get rid of those guys to get through his forehand flank. They're going to have a real difficult time doing that because now their toughness is pretty much on par with the strength of my monsters, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how that pretty much works out. So that pretty much makes the magic phase for this one. Since he has no shooting and nobody's engaged in close combat, that pretty much ends the turn number 1 for the Wood Elves. Alright, and that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 after moving for the Dark Elves. As you can see in this photo, I pretty much just started charging my forces directly into my opponent's main lines. The idea is that I kind of like my chances and my odds of actually kind of destroying some of these units and trying to breaking through and then overrunning. That's pretty much what my plan is, because this whole solid wall of forest spirits is kind of intimidating, and I just kind of basically have to break it. So you can see on the left-hand side, starting on the left-hand side, I moved my Doomfire Warlocks and marched them out across the river in order to get them kind of situated in position so that they can't be flanked. They cover the flank of my Sea Stone Sorrows from that huge unit of 20 Dryads there on the left-hand side, as well as Durthu. At the same time, I charged in my Sea Stone Sorrows into the Troop of Dawn, and luckily for me, that unit was about a half-inch more forward than the other unit of Treekin, so because that still was a legal charge, so I charged my guys directly into that. I also took Wrathwreck the Maw and charged them directly to the Troop of Dusk, which is that Treekin unit right there on the right-hand side in the center portion, and the very far right-hand flank, I charged in both my General, Midas Daechir and Kalibos, as well as Wrathwreck Veers of the Broken into that unit of Dryads. Even though that unit of Dryads has very high toughness, I'm hoping that the Chill Blade will automatically wound and help me secure some kill some of those guys. The idea is I'm hoping that my 2 units charging it will break that unit, overrun, destroy, and then that way they can start making movements to flank on the right hand side of that entire main line. So that's pretty much the tactic I was pretty much going for in this part. Here's a close-up of my General, Lord Midas Daechir, as well as Kalibos the Manticore and Veers of the Broken charging to that unit of the Court of Falls, the Autumns. Like I said before, my goal here is to break these guys with combat res and cause enough damage so that way they can force this unit to break, have them pursue that breaking unit and overrun them, and that way they can start flanking on their next turn. So that's the close-up on this side. Alright, here's a close-up of my Sea Stone Sorrows as well as Wrathwreck the Maw charging to the respective units for the Troop of Dawn as well as the Troop of Dusk, so that they can take on those 2 units and kind of destroy them. These guys will be kind of hard to crack because these guys are toughness 5, but I do have +1 strength on my Spearmen, my Dread Spears, so that might help me kind of mitigate some of that. What I'm hoping to do is during the next magic phase is kind of clear up some of these guys, destroy some of these units using magical spells, and give my guys some buffs as well as some hexes for my opponents, that way it'll be easier to take care of them. So that's what's going on this side. And here's a close-up of my Doomfire Warlocks, the Shacklemore Seers, putting themselves in position so that way they can't have to worry about getting flanked by either Durthu. My Sea Stone Stars protecting their flanks, so that way the Sea Stone Stars don't get flanked by either Durthu or the Court of Summers. And so that's the kind of like the idea where I got them positioned right there. So granted, that unit could probably get chopped to pieces if Durthu decides to charge into them, but that's the risk I'm willing to take at this point. During the magic phase, I basically just came to my own, as you can see in this photo, and all the devastation that took place. First of all, I tried to cast a couple of spells first. I drew Horse Strider Task, spell out Soul Blight, so that way they get -1 strength and toughness. Try to go for the big one, but my opponent managed to dispel that one automatically, so that one kind of went away. I also tried to use Doom's Bolt as well as another number of spells to try to draw his dispel dice. And actually, what I decided to do is I decided to cast the, what you call that spell, Arenzapal's Black Horror, which is that wonderful, wonderful spell that actually travels artillery die ×4 in this case, because my wizard's level 4 wizard, and travels on their entire main line, and also kind of takes out everything that goes within its path. I think I rolled a 6 or maybe an 8. I think it might have been an 8 is what I ended up rolling. So because of that, Rinzapal's Black Horde just kind of flies through that entire main line all the way through. As you can see there, for the Court of Springs, which is that Dryad unit there on the left-hand side, I killed 6 of those guys. They just kind of basically died on that part. Durthu, of course, passes strength test, so not much happening there. I managed to kill 4 Dryads, the Court of Summers, but the one that really helped me out the most was when I took out the members of the Treekin that are located there in both those units. As you can see on the Court of Dusk, the Troop of Dusk, I took out 1 Treekin on that part, and I took out 2 Treekin for the Troop of Dusk, which will really, for Dawn, which will really help me out a lot in this battle, because a lot less Treekin for me to worry about. I can concentrate more on my attacks and basically kind of hope to defeat them through combat resolution is what I'm kind of hoping for there as well. So that's what happened here on this side. And to top things off, the very last spell I got was Doom and the Power of Darkness as well. I managed to increase my unit of Spearmen for 1+ strength. I also managed to get 1 additional magic down the process. I then tried to cast Shroud of Despair, but unfortunately for me, that spell got dispelled by my opponent. So that pretty much makes the magic phase on this one. During the shooting phase, both of my Reaper Bolt Throwers opened up on Durthu, managed to hit him twice actually, which is kind of nice, and managed to put 3 more additional wounds on that guy as well. I think one of my Storms of Cost got 1 wound off, while the other one got 2 wounds, so that part was kind of nice as well. Basically, the only thing that's saving me is the fact that this guy doesn't get armor saves when it comes to my Bolt Throwers, which is kind of nice. He does get his ward saves, but his ward saves are only up on a 6 up, so that's not too hard. The only thing I was really worried about was having to shoot through cover, but I managed to get those shots off with perfect 6s on both of those, so that was pretty awesome. And during the shooting phase, I managed to plink up another handful of Dryads in the Court of Summers using my my Morning Dawn order to do that, so that part was kind of nice as well. Normally, I'd be really happy because right now the Xeno will be taking a panic test, but because 4 spirits in the Wood Elf army are immune to psychology, they don't have to worry about taking a panic test at all. So that pretty much rounds up the shooting phase. So with shooting over, we go directly to the close combat phase. In the close combat phase, an absolute slaughter occurred between this battle that basically took place here. First of all, let's go ahead and talk about what the different things happened. First of all, with my Sea Stone Sorrows managed to put a serious hurting onto those units of the Troop of Dawn. They managed to kill a handful of my Dark Elves. I think they managed to kill 5 of my Dark Elves in the process of doing that. But the reason why is because their weapon skills, my opponent was kind of rolling kind of low on this part. A lot of 1s, a lot of 2s, unfortunately for it. I was just rolling out of the box for my guys, rolling a bunch of 5s as well as a bunch of 6s for both for their wounds as well. And I gotta tell you, the ability to reroll wounds to wound due to murderous prowess is extremely powerful, especially against high toughness enemies. So that part really helped me out a lot. So because of that, I finally decided I did actually won that combat. I actually killed, I think, 3 Treekin in total by the time the combat got over with, through the combination of both the wounds I inflicted as well as ranks and the fact that I got a charge plus Battle Center and Battle Center Bearer. Basically, I defeated the combat res. My opponent had to take a leadership test. They broke, so because of that I pursued. And as you can see there, when my opponent rolled to see how far they get away, he rolled Snake Eyes on that part. So, and I rolled like a 3 or a 4 or something like that. So because of that, I automatically ran those guys and killed them. Unfortunately for me, I also overran because of that directly into the Court of Summers. As you can see, they're kind of like in a weird situation there, which is going to be kind of rough for me because they'll have more attacks coming from that Dryad unit that I will be able to dish back. So until both of us can do a combat reformed in order to get most of our troops going on each other, my opponent, Smells Like Freeze, actually has the advantage on that part. Also, if you notice on the right hand side as well, Wrathwick the Maul had no problem whatsoever just chewing through those Treekin. At strength 7, all the multiple attacks this guy gets, he has no problem whatsoever kind of chewing through those guys. Plus he has poison attacks, which is also another very important ability for him to have, as well as his Abyssal Howl ability, which is also pretty nice as well. He also wins through combat res because of the amount of destruction he caused, and that he also charges as well. The Treekin break, he pursues, overruns, and runs those guys down and just kills them down to the last man. So that part is kind of nice as well. However, there is a problem with Wrathwick the Maul being located there, and that main problem is now I realize that my right hand flank of my Sea Stone Sorrows is now completely open, and what that means is that that Court of Winters can now actually charge through and actually get into my right hand flank because they're within their charge arc. So that's something I did not foresee coming, and now I gotta worry about that too. So yeah, that makes a combat phase on this side of the board. And combat over here on this right-hand side absolutely was atrocious for my opponent. I managed to destroy that unit outright, but instead of overrunning because I destroyed that unit, I decided to do leadership tests to make sure these guys don't test restraint, so that way they can get them off into better charges the next round. So that's exactly what I do. I hold my guys' position where they're located at, so that way they can charge either into the flank of that Court of Winters or directly into that Tree Man Ancient, which is Coetal the Willow Lord. And that pretty much what's happened here is on combat here on the right-hand side. So with combat phase over, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Wood Elves. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn number 2 after the movement phase. As you can see in this photo, my buddy Smells Like Febreze actually kind of surprised me, and he actually just started charging all of his military units as quickly as he possibly could, which is actually kind of surprising, that part. So starting from the left and working all the way to the right hand side, as you can see, he charged Durthu directly into my Doomfire Warlocks to get rid of those guys. Even though my Doomfire Warlocks do have a 4-up ward against Durthu, I'm just thinking that's not going to actually do all that well for my guys. I think those guys are going to be killed here to the last man here in a second. Also on the left hand side there, as you can see, he moves up his quarter sprint, just marches him up as quickly as he can, kind of wheels him around to the left hand side as well. Over in the center portion of the board, as you can see, the Court of Winters charges the flank of my Dread Spears, the Sea Stone Sorrow, so that part's kind of scary because now I got that huge brick of Dryads coming my way, and that's going to be kind of rough as well. And also on the right hand side, my buddy decided to ride or die basically, and just charge up Coetal the Willow Lord directly into my general, which is Lord Midas Daechir and Kalibos. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see exactly how that works out in the end. So yeah, that pretty much makes up movement for this one. Here's a close-up of Durthu charging directly into my Doomfire Warlocks, and that part's going to be kind of brutal, so I'll have to see exactly how that combat works out in the end. And here's a close-up of the Court of Winters charging directly to the flank of my Sea Stone Sorrow, so that part's also kind of rough as well. So now I'm kind of stuck in an envelopment type situation, so I'll lose Steadfast, but at the same time, even though I'll lose Steadfast on this, my unit is stubborn with the Crown of Command, so that kind of helps mitigate that fact. Now I just have to worry about trying to survive being attacked on 2 different fronts, so that part's kind of rough. And here is a close-up of Coetal the Willow Lord charging directly into my General Midas Daechir and Kalibos, so that part's kind of interesting as well. So with moving it done and moving it down out of the way, we go directly to the Magic phase. During the magic phase, my opponent gets off the Savage Beasts of Horos, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the Savage Beasts of Horos, and he gets it off on Durthu. So now Durthu has Strength 3, has to roll 3 additional attacks as well. So that guy's like a Strength 9, 9 attack wielding Tree Lord, and that's just, oh my god, that's just absolutely brutal. I mean, I'm absolutely terrified to see exactly what's going to happen. It's kind of like watching a horror movie. Like, I know what's going to happen, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen, but at the same time, I still kind of want to see what happens in a strange kind of way. But anyways, it's kind of neat to see that aspect of it. So Savage Beast of Horos on Durthu, and now Durthu is just that much more deadly, which is absolutely terrifying. And to make matters worse, my opponent also casts Flesh to Stone on his Tree Man Ancient and makes him even more tough because he's got the boosted version due to the Throne of Vines. He's got +4 toughness now, so I think his toughness is something like toughness 8 or something like that, something ridiculous now. And so I'm just absolutely terrified about the fact I gotta take this guy and I try to wound him, which is kind of tough, but you know, I'll do what I can. And because Smell Like Febreze has no shooting in this Wood Elf army, we go directly to the combat phase. And as you can see in this photo, Durthu had no problem whatsoever just chopping those Doomfire Warlocks down to their basic elements. It's just absolutely terrifying. He just sliced right through a couple of them right off the bat. Then he also did his Thunder Stops as well. My Doomfire Warlocks basically had no chance of surviving this whatsoever. It was absolutely terrifying to watch Durthu just make mincemeat out of them entirely. So he destroyed that unit entirely. Instead of overrunning, though, he tests Restrain. He passes test restrain, even though he has test restrain. So then he also turns down to face the flank of my other unit, of my left-hand flank of my Sea Stone Sorrows, and now that's just absolutely horrifying. To imagine that unit was going to be bogged down by 3 different attacks now. So I'm going to have to deal with Durthu pretty quick in my next turn coming up. Alright, close combat against my Sea Stone Sorrows as well. The Court of Winters and the Court of Summers actually went pretty well considering the amount of damage I basically took. When it was all said and done, I managed to kill a handful of the Court of Summer guys. I think I managed to kill 3 or 4 of those guys, so now there's only 10 of those guys left over. And I also managed to wipe out 5 members of the Court of Winters as well. They, on the other hand, managed to kill 8 of my guys, and that was pretty rough as well. But, like I said before, the only thing that actually kind of saved this battle is the fact that my unit was stubborn, and that my Battle Standard Bearer is locating that unit as well. So that really helped me out on this part. So I'm still rolling, and plus, I'll not to mention that, I also have the Standard Discipline this unit as well. So we're talking about a Leadership 10 stubborn re-rolling unit when it comes to their leadership tests. And this is where actually the Sea Stone Sorrows, the way I designed it kind of pays off at the end. My idea was to create this huge block of core troops that could, you know, get busted to strength with their wizard, at the same time have a lot of fighting power still left over, also have really high initiative, really high leadership values, that way they kind of like bog down whatever might be coming my way, and this is where it kind of shines through for me. So even though I lost this battle, I had no problem actually managing to make my leadership test, my break test, because I didn't have to worry about any factors like that because of the Crown of Command, which was really, really helpful for those units. So because of that, that unit is still around, and we go on for another round of combat. And over here, oh my god, combat was absolutely brutal over here. I managed to put 3 wounds onto Coadel the Will Lord, but in the end what happened was that Coadel the Will Lord decided to use his Tree Whack ability. And if in case you don't know, what happens is that your opponent, me in this case, has to take an initiative test, and if I fail that initiative test, I take D6 strength 6 hits off of this guy because this guy is strength 6. So he decides to roll does decide to do the Tree Whacking ability, and it targets my Manticore because he decides to go after my Manticore. I thought it was kind of a strange choice, but I was like, okay, whatever. So I roll my dice on that part, and I failed my initiative test. So he ends up rolling a d6, gets a perfect 6 on that part, and just murder death kills my Manticore with no problem whatsoever. His strength is so high that I don't even get a chance to make any armor saves for my poor Manticore, so my Manticore gets killed. So then my general survives. But to make matters worse, this character also has his stomp ability still, his Thunderstop, and so he d6 Thunderstomps, gets perfect 6 on that part, rolls. I was unable to make any of my ward saves, and my general gets killed right off the bat. So both my general as well as Manticore is DRT, and the Coadel the Will Lord stands triumphantly over the mangled masses and bodies of what was once my general as well as my Manticore. So that part's pretty rough as well. And to make matters worse, there's no way I can charge this guy because my my War Hydra is, the Coadel the Will Lord is out of the charge arcs of my War Hydra. So now I'm just kind of like have to wait for him to come charging to me, unfortunately. So that part was kind of rough. So with combat phase over, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Dark Elves. Alright, so that takes the top of turn number 3 after movement for the Dark Elves. You can see in this photo, pretty much all my guys are really doing is just kind of repositioning themselves in order to face my opponent. I just did a quick couple of combat reforms, so that way my next turn I can start charging to some of these units actually causing some havoc. So you can see in the bottom of the page there, I just repositioned Wrathrick the Maul, so that way you can charge into the rear or the flank, rear of the Court of Summers, or into the flank of the Court of Winters, depending on whatever situation might apply. And as you see on the far right hand side there, I got my War Hydra, Veers of the Broken, turn to face off against Coadil, so that way he can start engaging him in close combat on his next turn to charge. Here's a close-up of Rathric the Maul turning, so that way he could charge either to the Court of Summers or the Court of Wonders, depending on how the situation goes in the next round of combat. As the way things are working right now, I might have to charge him directly to the Court of Wonders in order to get him get some additional help from my my Dread Spears, because you know, they're just kind of hit from the flank on that side. So that's the close-up on this one. And here's a close-up of Reavers of the Broken, kind of turning to face Coedo the Will Lord, so that way they can start getting their combat on, which is kind of neat to see exactly how this kind of works out. During the magic phase, I only managed to get 2 spells off. The very first one was Arinzelpol's Black Horde, because that spell never goes out of style, no matter who you are. Unfortunately for me, though, when I rolled in the artillery dice to see how far the spell would go, I rolled like a 2, so it only went 8 measly inches. However, it did manage to wipe out half of the Court of Summers, which is actually very helpful for me, so I only have to worry about those 5 Dryads in the front. So, you know, a dead Dryad is a good Dryad as far as I'm concerned. And as before, I also managed to get Power of Darkness up as well, giving me a +1 strength to my Dread Spears, which I will desperately need for this next combat phase coming up as well. I try to use my dice in order to cast Word of Pain again, so that way I could cast into these Dryad units, but unfortunately for me, my spell got dispelled by Coedo the Will Lord, so that didn't really go anywhere. So with Magic Dome, we go directly to the shooting phase. In the shooting phase, I open up with the Morning Dawn as well as my Storms of Cost, my 2 Reaver Bolt Throws onto Durthu, and between those 2 units, we managed to wipe off Durthu and finally kill him off with shooting attacks alone. One of the things that really helped was the fact I was using flaming attacks because he's flammable, because he's a tree man, so that actually kind of worked out for the best for my part. So now, that guy is now DRT, one less tree man to worry about. And in the combat phase, things actually went pretty well for me. I did not manage to wound a single member of the Court of Winters at all, so that part was kind of rough. However, I did manage to wipe out what was left over of the Court of Summers as well. As you can see here as well, after all the combat resolution and everything else got done, I decided to do a quick combat reform, put my guys into a column formation instead of a horde formation. So now they're 4 ranks deep, 5 go across, so there are 20 guys left over, and I also got 3 additional spearmen in the back there, just to give me some rank bonuses against this unit of Dryads in the Court of Winters as well. So things were looking pretty good on that side. So with that being said, what I could do now is actually charge in my Rathric the Maul into that flank and then kind of take him out that way. So that pretty much makes the combat phase, and with combat done, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 rather, for the Wood Elves. So this is the bottom of turn number 3 after movement for the Wood Elves, and as you can see here with a yellow shout into the air, my opponent Smells Like Febreze just charged in his remaining units and decided to get them gripped up in combat as quickly as possible. So starting from the left hand side and working right, as you can see there, he decided to charge his Court of Springs directly into my 10 Dark Shards, so he's going to engage those guys in close combat as well. And on the far right hand side, he also charged in Coedo the Will Lord into Reavers of the Broken, and they decided to fight out with that combat, so we kind of interested to see how that goes. Here's a close-up of the 4 remaining members of the Court of Springs getting ready to attack my 10 Morning Dawn members with my Dark Shards. So we kind of see how that combat goes, because my Dark Shards aren't exactly tooled up for fighting in close combat, but, you know, stranger things have happened. And here's a close-up of Reavers of the Broken as well as Coedo going at it for close combat. So with movement out of the way, we go directly to the magic phase. During the magic phase, I managed to shut down most of the spells that Coedo the Will Lord was casting with spells like Febreze. Unfortunately for me, though, well, not unfortunately for me, unfortunately for my opponent Smells Like Febreze, he did manage to get the regrowth spell on, but when he rolled his d6, he only managed to pull up 1 wound off of that, which is kind of rough as well. So now the only guy that came back is 1 Dryad, which is pretty sad. I feel really bad for my buddy Smells Like Febreze when that occurred, but you know, that's the way it basically breaks down. So yeah, with magic out of the way, we go directly to the combat phase. During the close combat phase, my Dark Shards managed to kill off one of the Dryads at the same time. The Dryads, however, managed to kill 3 of my Dark Shards off as well, so that part was kind of rough. Even though I lost combat on this one, we basically rolled as my leadership test and managed to stay right there, so these guys are now engaged for another round of combat between these 2 units, so that part was kind of interesting. However, combat over here was absolutely terrifying. What happened was that Coedo did his tree whacking ability again, managed to put 2 wounds onto Reavers of the Broken because, Coedo actually had the higher initiative in that part. However, what really saved me in this combat was 2 things. First of all was Fiery Breath. That was the one thing that really helped me out a lot, because the tree man is flammable. I managed to take them down almost to his last 2 wounds because of that Flaming Breath attack, and then just regular attacks from the Hydros what basically put him down as well. So once again, this is like one of the reasons why I take a Monster Mash list when it comes to Dark Elves. Granted, because I have 3 large monsters in my army, I don't have a lot of variety in my forces. In fact, my army is always outnumbered as well as outmaneuvered in most cases, because I don't have a lot of units in my army. However, the points that I do have are very concentrated, and they're also well put into those monsters, because monsters like a Charybdis as well as a War Hydra, they earn their points values no problem whatsoever. So because of that, Coedo is now dead, and I'm just high as a kite at this point. And in close combat, we managed to finish off the last bit of the Court of Winters. As the combat went on, they basically inflicted 5 wounds onto my guys. I managed to kill a handful of them as well. I think I managed to kill 6 of them in the process of doing this. So because of that, my guys won combat through the combat resolution. My opponent was forced to take a break test. He fled 4 inches. I pursued 6 inches, ran through those guys, ended up right there in that orchard outside that ruin there, and managed to run those guys down. So in the end, it ended up being a victory for my troops in that close combat. And now the only thing that's left over now is the Court of Springs. And it's this point after this whole front turn was ended that my buddy Smells Like Febreze takes a look around, realizes all of his troops are pretty much dead except for his Court of Springs, and he pretty much calls the game at this point and kind of surrenders. So you can see in this photo, I did lose a lot of actually had a lot of losses in this battle, more than I usually do. I lost a lot of my guys in the Seastone Sorrows. I lost my Doomfire Warlocks, things of that nature. I also lost my general, so that part was kind of rough. But for the most part, those you can see is kind of like a one-sided victory for the most part. So I will take it. So with that being said, we go directly to the after action report because now this battle is officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for Warhammer the Golden Age, battle report number 25. It was a 2,000 point battle fought between myself with my House Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros Dark Elves army versus my buddy Smells Like Febreze of the Wyld Hunt with his 2,000 point Wood Elves 4-Spirit army. So let's go ahead and talk about exactly what happened in this battle report. Ended up being a victory for yours truly, and for my losses, I pretty much lost really things from my army. I lost Beast Lord Midas Daechir, Calibos, my Manticore, as well as the Shacklemore Seers. While my opponent, Smells Like Febreze, lost Durthu, Coedo the Willow Lord, the Court of Summers, the Court of Winters, the Court of Autumns, the Troop of Dawn, as well as the Troop of Dusk. So let's talk about some of the factors that kind of allow that to happen. First of all, lack of standard bearers and battle standard bearers in this army, my opponent's army, played a huge role in my victory. Unfortunately, with going with a full spirit, 4-spirit build, in the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, a lot of those guys do not have a lot of, they can't take battle standard bearers or standard bearers for any of their units, unfortunately. Now, they do have high strength, they do have high toughness, which is kind of like the trade-off, but at the same time, though, the loss of having +1 for combat resolution was pretty much huge, and it also was like kind of like the very factor that kind of led to those units breaking a lot of them. A lot of them were breaking and being able to run them down, destroying them, so I think that had a really big part of the reason why my opponent lost this battle. Also, magic was very important for this battle, especially 2 spells in particular. Orinzapol's Black Horror as well as the Power of Darkness were my MVPs for this magic report. I was able to thin down my opponent's army using Orinzapol's Black Horror, allowing my guys time to fight against those units and also defeat them in close combat. Plus the +1 strength for my unit of Dread Spears was also important as well. I always take that spell just for that unit and is ended up being valuable for that part. As I said before, the Seastone Sorrows are absolutely powerful and essential to the success of this army. You're talking about 38 Dread Spears. They have Power of Darkness that gives them a +1 strength. You also have them in a horde formations that where they're attacking with 30 attacks in the front. They get to reroll wounds of 1 because of a murderous prowess. When you throw in the battle standard bearer or normal standard bearer, you also throw in the +1 leadership for the standard discipline as well as the crown of command. You're talking about a unit that has leadership 10 that can reroll failed leadership tests, and no matter what circumstances they're fighting in, they're always fighting on an unmodified score of 10. And all those combinations added together equals out a total win for this unit. Now, one of the more astute viewers would say that the standard discipline prevents my unit from ever taking leadership tests from my general and benefiting from inspiring presence. While that may be true, it's not much of a factor though, because they also have stubborn, and that +1 leadership puts them at leadership 10 anyways, so it's kind of like they get the highest leadership value in that army anyways, so it just ends up working for that unit, and that's the reason why I'm able to do this. The Seastone Stars, like I said before, they're designed to suppress, to basically be a tar pit for my enemies to fight in there, where I can outflank with my other maneuvering elements. Another thing that really helped me out in this one was Murderous Prowess special rule for the Dark Elves army, really saved me this battle report, especially since I'm dealing with such a high toughness army that I'm fighting against on this one. So any rolls of 1, I get to re-roll those one more time for Murderous Prowess. When you combine that with Always Strikes First, so that way I'm also re-rolling misses, it just ends up being a really devastating combination put together. As I said before, I love playing this army. I love the Monster Master list that I'll have. I'll continue playing with it for some time, and there's no real stopping for me at this point. Once again, this was a great game, awesome opponent. I'm looking forward to the rematch as always. And also, as well, feel free to check out my Instagram page. page for all the latest updates to my armies, games, and hobbies I'm participating in, so where you guys get the latest updates. And please feel free to put your likes, comments, subscriptions. All your input is always appreciated, you guys. Once again, thank you very much for your guys' viewership. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys this Sunday for our next battle report. See you guys on Sunday.